Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Fish Bytes, the Miami Herald's Miami Marlins podcast. I'm Jordan McPherson. Well, MLB's annual winter meetings, the first ones in person in about 3 years, have come and gone. So let's recap all the moves and deals that the Marlins made while everyone was out in San Diego. Well, that just about covers it. Did you get all that? Good. Well, on a serious note, it was a quiet few days on the West Coast from a transaction standpoint for the Marlins. They didn't sign a free agent. They didn't make any trades. Yes, they kicked the can on a few prominent players who are out in the free agent market, but in all, at the end, nothing materialized. Meanwhile, just about all the big playmakers in the leagues made moves. But for the sake of this podcast, we're just going to focus in particular on those three teams from the NL East, those three top teams in the NL East, the Braves, the Phillies, the Mets. And obviously we have to start with the Mets and Steve Cohen's endless supply of blank checks. Because when you just look at everything they've done over the past week and a half, Justin Verlander, 2 years, $86.7 million. Brandon Nimmo returning on 8-year, $162 million deal. They signed pitcher Kodai Senga from Japan for 5 years and $75 million on top of the posting fee for him. Jose Quintana, another pitcher, 2 years, $26 million. David Robertson, reliever, 1 year, $10 million. And that's on top of back at the very beginning of spring of the offseason when they re-signed Edwin Diaz to a 5-year, $102 million deal. You look at the Phillies, Trey Turner, 11 years, $300 million. Right-handed pitcher Taijuan Walker, 4 years and $72 million. And left-handed reliever Matt Strahm for 2 years and $15 million. And then the Braves, yes, quiet relative to the Phillies and the Mets, but they still beefed up by acquiring right-handed reliever Joe Jimenez at the very end of winter meetings to help replace Kenley Jensen. And then just on Monday, we're part of a 3-team trade that got them the Oakland A's catcher Sean Murphy, which now you pair him with Travis d'Arnaud, and you have arguably the best 1-2 catcher duo in Major League Baseball at this point. So 3 teams, 2 of which had 100 wins and made the playoffs. The third made it as the final wildcard team and made it all the way to the World Series. They're all getting better. They're all paying. You look at the 3 of them specifically, they're all among the top 7 in projected payrolls for the 2023 season at this point, according to Fangraphs. The Mets at this point, and we all know they're probably not done spending yet because, well, it's the Mets and we've seen what they've done the last couple of years. Their payroll already is at an absurd $335 million. And that's not even including all the taxes they're going to have to pay for going over every single competitive balance tax threshold. At that point, if you look at what they have with the $335 million plus all the taxes, they're basically paying about $400 million right now to field the roster they have at this point. The Phillies have the 4th highest payroll right now, $230 million, more than $100 million less than what the Mets are projected to have right now. The Braves are 7th at $196 million. The Marlins, they're all the way down to 23rd with a projected $95 million payroll. And this projection includes, or in this salary number includes projections for players who are either in arbitration or players who are in team control and not at arbitration yet, and their salaries have yet to be determined. Pre-arb guys, for the most part, make the league minimum, which I believe is about $720,000 this year. The Marlins have about 10 guys who are due for arbitration. Their numbers are probably going to be for the most part, those guys are going to end up making less than their projections. So that'll shave some off of the 95 projection. And it's also worth noting these projections don't necessarily mean this is the amount of money the Marlins are paying all of their players. It's especially for guys when you look at those guys who have the guaranteed contracts, the Avisail Garcias, the Jorge Solers, the Sandy Alcantaras, Miguel Rojas and Richard Blyer are the others who have guaranteed deals. For the salary purposes, for the payroll purpose, MLB goes off average annual value. So how much money on average for a deal. So if you look at Sandy Alcantara, his deal is 5 years, $56 million. That's an average annual value of $11.2 million. So for the sake of the 2023 payroll, for MLB's tracking when it comes to teams coming up towards the luxury tax numbers, the competitive balance tax numbers, Sandy Alcantara is being put in at 11.2 million. His actual contract for this year is 6.3 million. So he's actually, for the payroll hit, Sandy Alcantara's hit is actually 5 million more than he's getting. But on the flip side of that equation, when he gets to the final 2 years of his deal, which are worth 17.3 million apiece, it's still only going to count as the 11.2. So if Sandy Alcantara is still here in 2025, 2026, when he's supposed to be making 17.3, the Marlins are actually going to be paying 6 million more for each of those years than what it's going to show on the salary cap on the payroll. So that's something to factor in there. But even at that, they're still under 100 million for their projection. They're still far behind basically all of the majority of the teams that have made the playoffs. And of course, it's not impossible to win with a lower payroll. We've seen it done before. The Rays are obviously the shining example of that. You've seen Cleveland do it. Saw what Baltimore did last year. They were just on the cusp of the playoffs. They're looking like they're going to be fringe wildcard team again this year, and they have a low payroll. But what it does mean is that the reliance on player development, which, as we've seen, at least on the position player side, has been a struggle for the Marlins, becomes that much more important, as does the necessity to hit on basically every move that they make, every decision that they make, the free agent signings that they're going to make, that they make before opening day, the trades they make before opening day, the decision to call up prospect, the decisions mid-season at the trade deadline, what they do to improve the roster if they feel like they're in contention. Everything gets analyzed and becomes more of a focal point for a team with a lower payroll because they can't afford to miss. If you miss, you're stuck with the miss. If you're a team like the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, even the Padres, what they're doing right now, if you have a guy with a big contract and things don't work out, you can push him to the side and start figuring out what other options you have. If you're a team like the Marlins who aren't committing the dollars to the roster, you have to use what you have at your disposal. And that in and of itself puts the Marlins in a tricky situation because we know they're not going to match the payrolls of any of those teams that have been the big spenders this offseason. They're just not. We've seen it over the course of these past 5 years under the Bruce Sherman ownership group. They say they're going to spend, but we don't see them competing with all of these other powerhouses, which forces them to resort to the B pool or the C pool of free agents, or have to go the trade route in order to make their moves in order to try to enhance the roster. But in that same vein, the Marlins have said they're in win now mode, entering year 6 of the Sherman ownership group and the first year under new manager Skip Schumacher. Normally, a team that's in win now mode is going to be doing what it needs to do to fix its weaknesses. For the Marlins, that primarily means beefing up the offense. And unless you factor in the handful of players who they've signed to minor league deals and the couple prospects they've gotten in trades, they haven't done anything yet. And that's not to say that they've been idly sitting on their hands. The Marlins did make an offer to first baseman Jose Abreu. From what the Herald's been able to report, it was 2 years, $40 million. He ended up going to the Astros for 3 years and $60. They pursued first baseman Josh Bell, who ended up going to the Cleveland Guardians for 2 years and $33 million. They discussed going after outfielder Cody Bellinger, who signed with the Chicago Cubs for 1 year and $17.5 million. But these discussions and being in play and trying to get guys is nice, but if they want to be competitive, they've got to start sealing deals. They have to actually make movement and have something tangible, something physical, a deal, anything to actually show for the work that they say they are doing behind the scenes. Whether any of that materializes, we'll see. But on that note, where do the Marlins go from here? Well, the first and foremost thing, and it's something that the Marlins are going to preach for these next few months, is they still have a few months to make moves. Opening day isn't until March 30th. They have about 2 months until spring training starts and players have to start reporting to Jupiter. But with that, time is still ticking. On the free agent side, they have extended an offer to former Dodgers infielder Justin Turner. He's a free agent after The Dodgers declined his $16 million option. And with the pool that is there, that is left in terms of free agents, and with what the price ranges of players that we've seen the Marlins trying to pursue, he's probably the last big name guy out there in the Marlins price range for them to pursue. Whether anything does come out of their deal, and the reports we've been getting is that they did give a competitive offer, although we don't have the exact numbers right now, is to be determined. Beyond that, moves are likely going to have to come from the trade market. Discussed outfielder Brian Reynolds earlier when he requested a trade from the Pittsburgh Pirates right as winter meetings were starting. But Pirates, as they have for the last year or so, their offer is extremely high. They don't want to move on from him unless they absolutely have to. So that option for right now is likely shelved unless the asking price drops. Baltimore Orioles still, to me, seem like a very logical option, whether it's for center fielder Cedric Mullins or whether it's for their top outfielder prospect, Colton Cowser, the number 5 overall pick from the 2021 draft, who in just his first full season of pro ball, he played about 30 games after he got drafted in 21, and then a full season this year, already made up to AAA, career 895 OPS in 170 minor league games. If they did end up going with the Cowser route, he likely would need to start in AAA, but would be a guy who looks like a fast riser. And again, Baltimore, they're looking for starting pitching. And if the right deal can be made, the Marlins have starting pitching to offer. Pablo Lopez, Trevor Rogers, Edward Cabrera, if they need to, are all options in that discussion. We would see where the Marlins go. Again, Pablo Lopez finally pitched a full season last year, first time in his MLB career. He's under team control for 2 more years. Trevor Rogers, a year removed from his National League Rookie of the Year runner-up season, struggled last year, but he's a lefty with 4 years control, a lot of upside. And when it comes to which pitchers the Marlins trade, it's depending on what the teams want. If you look at Pablo Lopez, he probably has a higher floor than Trevor Rogers, but Trevor Rogers has the higher ceiling. He's a lefty who could possibly be a number 2 in a rotation. Pablo feels like at the worst is going to be a number 4 on a decent rotation. And other teams where the Marlins can pursue, got to look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Athletics' Ken Rosenthal reported a couple days ago that the Diamondbacks are likely to trade one of their left-handed hitting center fielders. That group includes Dalton Varsho, Alec Thomas, Jake McCarthy. That's another avenue Miami can explore if they're looking through the trade route, see what at the very least, you got to give the Diamondbacks a call and see what they're asking for any of those 3 guys. And it all goes back to the same question. Yes, there are options on the table. There are moves for the taking. Will the Marlins make those moves? We'll see. Opening day is 3.5 months away, guys. So the clock is ticking. And with that, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Just a really quick one because, again, wasn't much to actually rehash over moves that were made because not many moves were made. We'll be back again at some point before the year ends. Whether that's next week or the week after is to be determined depending on what the Marlins do. With that, thanks so much again for tuning in and have a good one, everyone.